tonight's Lieutenant Governor's debate at the University of Arkansas Clinton School of Public Service. I'm Skip Rutherford, Dean of the Clinton School, and we are pleased to host tonight's forum. The importance of this office is further highlighted by the fact that both Lieutenant Governor Jim Guy Tucker and Lieutenant Governor Mike Huckabee, during their terms, became governors. We also tonight honor the memory of the late Lieutenant Governor Win Rockefeller. Let me welcome our audience, which includes students from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, the University of Central Arkansas, Lyon College, the UALR William H. Owen School of Law, as well as Clinton School students. Students from these schools submitted questions in advance, and from those, the moderator has selected the ones he will ask. Thank all the students and the schools they are representing for your participation tonight. Before beginning, let me go over a few ground rules. Number one, please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. Students in my class know that is a given. Please, everyone do that. Unless it is an emergency, please remain in your seats until the 1-hour debate is over. A reception will follow where you will have the opportunity to visit with both candidates and their staffs. I would ask that you applaud only twice during the debate. The first time when the candidates are introduced, and then when the debate is over. Please do not applaud, talk, make noise, raise your hands, or anything like that during this debate. Even if you strongly agree or disagree with something that is said, please show professional courtesy and respect. The moderator will ask all the questions. There will be none from the audience or from the media during the actual debate. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to make an opening statement. The moderator will then ask questions, and the candidates will alternate on who answers first. The answer can be up to 2 minutes. The response is up to 2 minutes, followed by 30-second rebuttals before moving on to the next question. At the conclusion, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for closing statements. Patrick Kennedy, the Director of Public Programs at the Clinton School, will serve as the official timekeeper. Tonight's moderator is Don Elkins from Fayetteville. Don has 20 years of broadcast experience and currently hosts 2 radio shows in Northwest Arkansas. He is a self-proclaimed political junkie and produces the very popular and highly read blog, ArkansasTonight.com. We're honored to have him with us to moderate this debate. Would you please welcome Don Elkins.
Let's get right to it. Let me introduce the candidates. State Senator Jim Holt and Bill Halter. Gentlemen, I'd like to have you come out. We do have an order tonight in which we are going to proceed. I wasn't listening. I don't know if Skip actually went through it. It was a coin toss. And Mr. Holt will have the opening. He'll get the first word. Mr. Halter will get the final word toward the end. And you, of course, have heard the instructions. Let me give you a very brief thumbnail sketch introduction of both of our candidates tonight. Incumbent Jim Holt is a Republican senator from Springfield, served in the State House starting in 2000, later elected to District 35 State Senate. He was born in Canton, Arkansas. He grew up in Northwest Arkansas. He served in the Armed Forces, married 18 years old, 18 years, and he has a lot of kids. The challenger, Democrat Bill Halter. Mr. Halter served as Deputy Commissioner and later as Acting Commissioner of Social Security. Before that, he served in the Office of Management and Budget in the Executive Office of the President during the Clinton administration. Mr. Holt was married this January. which is a little while, and is expected in daughter in November. Jim, thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll start off now with the statements. Mr. Holt.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It looks like we're filled with a room. A lot of people that I'm very familiar with, and members of the press, and usually suspects, I guess we could say. It's an honor to be here. It's been an honor to serve in the House and in the Senate. It's probably even more of an honor for me when I was serving in the Armed Forces, when I was a food service specialist and became a linguist and then an analyst and then a watch officer for national security. Served primarily as an analyst and a watch officer, and just kind of secondary. But you know, I think probably the greatest thing not only was it having to do with being married to my wife Bobby, she's here tonight, and having the children, but I guess probably the best service that I've been able to have is probably just being dad. And you know, it's actually been a pleasure. Some people say to me, well, Jim, how do you have 9 children? First of all, I can have my super wife down here. But secondarily, I guess I could just say that they're actually some of my best friends. My oldest daughter here is with me tonight, Kaylee, and pleasure to have her here as well. You know, our campaign has basically been just about several things. And it's been really basically giving government back to the people. And how are we going to do that? And the way we've always said is the best way. Thomas Jefferson said, whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. And Win Rockefeller has done a great job as Lieutenant Governor as far as bringing in, you know, being an ambassador, bringing in different jobs and things to the community and to the state. However, I want to add to that by giving cameras in the committee rooms, by talking with people, letting them see when they log into the Lieutenant Governor's website, that they'll be able to see a bill tracking system, what each bill does. And they can actually see the committees as actually they're happening, well, he's recorded first and then come down. And they'll be able to click on their representative or their senator and be able to say, you know, here's his website, here's his phone number. And I think that is something that people really desire, because let's face it, I think the reason most people feel disenfranchised by the government, I think basically is because they haven't. And a lot of our campaign has also been focused on party politics. Party politics has been something that I found in the legislature I went in, and thinking that this party is the right party, and I still adhere closely to those principles. However, I found that people have a tendency to get caught in the crossfire when it comes to party politics. You know, we don't have Democrat problems, we don't have Republican problems, we really have Arkansas problems. And as I go around the state, we have independents, we have Democrats, we have other peoples of other parties joining our campaign. So we're very grateful for that. And we hope tonight that you'll be one of those as well. Thank you, and God bless.
Mr. Halter.
Well, thank you, Don, and thanks to Dean Skip Rutherford and the students that are participating in tonight's debate. I'm delighted to be here, not far from where I grew up. I was born and raised on the other side of the Arkansas River, the son of a nurse and small businessman. I'm a fourth-generation Arkansan, and the state has been very good to me. In church, and on ball fields, at the North Little Rock Boys Club, and at home, I learned the values of faith and family, community, responsibility, education, and hard work. I benefited from a terrific education, the kind of education that allowed me great opportunities in business and in public service. After beginning my business career and serving on Capitol Hill, I was honored to be asked by President Clinton to serve in the White House Budget Office. And I'm proud to have been a member of the team that balanced the federal budget for the first time in 40 years. President Clinton then nominated me to be the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer of Social Security. I grew up with the teachings of the Gospels that to whom much has been given, much is expected. And that is one of the reasons that I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. For my entire life, Arkansas has been 49th out of the 50 states in income, and 49th out of the 50 states in far too many other important statistics. This is simply unacceptable. There's nothing in the water that says that Arkansas has to be 49th in income or the other things that matter, and there's certainly nothing in the genetic makeup of Arkansans that says that we have to be 49th. But to move forward, we're going to have to be willing to take a risk and also willing to invest in our own future. I'd like to be the Lieutenant Governor who's on the side of all Arkansans, from children to parents to grandparents. I want to make sure all Arkansas children have the same terrific opportunities that I've had. Every hardworking parent in the state should know that their children are attending excellent schools, not merely adequate schools. And when our children grow up, I don't want them to feel the need to leave the state in order to achieve a higher income, because we can bring and build better and higher paying jobs here in Arkansas. I want to help and continue to help our senior citizens to retire in dignity with income security and with a health care program that works for them. Now, meeting the challenges and the opportunities that are available for our state require pragmatic leadership and common sense solutions. Very rarely are the best solutions either from the far left or the far right, but typically we're going to find them on that common middle ground. I hope we can focus this debate tonight on the real problems facing Arkansas and the real solutions that are available to us. Thanks so much.
You've heard the opening statements. Now we're going to proceed with the questions. Again, the questions that I've been given come from students at both the undergraduate and graduate level in this state. I'm going to start off with question number one, and we'll start off with 2 minutes for Mr. Holt on this. This question addressed to both gentlemen. Gentlemen, what do you see as the role of the Lieutenant Governor, and what type of impact do each of you believe you can actually have on the implementation of policy initiatives? The writer says it seems the position is largely overshadowed by the Governor and Attorney General positions. Mr. Holt.
I would agree that a lot of times that would be the case, but I think the job pays $40,000 a year approximately. That means you make $80,000 for 2 years, you work 4 months. That's $20,000 a month. Most Arkansans don't make that. That's why it's dedicated to serve double time. We're going to have more programs coming out in the future about what we need to do to actually help improve. You know, I talked to DHS today, like 3,500 adopted and foster parent or children that are available. That's something I would like to push. There's no excuse for that in the state of Arkansas, especially when we have about 5,000 churches. So there are 4 basic functions constitutionally of Lieutenant Governor. 1 is to preside over the Senate. Number 2 is to break a tie vote in case. And number 3, you can also have a joint with the governor. Number 4, you actually have appointments to boards and commissions. But I think it's time that we redefine that position. And one of the things that I already talked about was to do the cameras in the committee room. So that's something we're going to do. Something else, though, if we don't push over and over and over again these issues, these are things I would like to take to the people of Arkansas as ballot initiatives. One is the taxpayer bill of rights that we'll do in the interim. I don't remember anything else during my 8-year stint as Lieutenant Governor, but to actually go around and share with people about what it means, once again, to be free. You know, our founding fathers and I said that people with unique heritage tend to walk and behave with a special purpose. And Karl Marx, I'm sure you know who he is, he said that if the people can forget their heritage, they're easily persuaded. Another thing I'd like to see is illegal immigration reform, and also school reform, and also lobby reform, with special interests do not control the entire legislative process. So that's another way we can actually give government back to the people.
Mr. Holt.
Well, Jim has mentioned some of the constitutionally prescribed duties. Let me just indicate that I think one of the greatest roles for the Lieutenant Governor can be to advance the economic interest of the state, to go out as Glenn Rockefeller did and to recruit industry into the state and work with business leaders within the state to try to put together an economic environment, foster an economic environment where we can build the jobs and bring the jobs to the state and move us beyond 49 in income. But one thing that everyone needs to draw in mind, and that is that our last 2 governors have become governor without election. That the Lieutenant Governor ascended to that seat, and of course we never would have predicted either one of those to happen. But the fact is, I think voters should look to the executive leadership experience of the two candidates and ask, who has had the background and leadership experience of actually running a large agency or a large organization in either the public or private sector? Who has the possibility of demonstrating that executive leadership experience? And then also, who has the experience bringing people together in a bipartisan fashion? So those are some of the things that we need to focus on. But I would also say, currently there's not really anyone in the state government whose focus is to cut across agency lines and be an advocate for our state seniors. We are one of the most elderly states in the country. I know from my time leading Social Security that 1 out of 5 of our candidates receive a Social Security check each month. And we also know that the health care needs of seniors need to be dealt with. There are some big differences between my opponent and myself on these issues. I think they will become known here over the course of this next hour. But let me just say that the lieutenant governor position can be much more than it's been in the past, but it's also been very important in the past that the last 2 governors have come from that job.
Mr. Holt, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I guess the question I have is, we talk about economic interest, and I'm all for that as lieutenant governor, and bringing big business in the state. I keep saying we need maximum wage jobs. We're losing jobs left and right throughout the entire state, and that's got to stop. Now, who has the plan to do it? One of the running large business, we've been in state government for quite a while. We've been familiar with the budget. We've been through the legislative process and bringing people together. Like we said earlier, we had a Democrat spokesman from our campaign.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Halter, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, I think that you're going to see, and point this out over the course of the evening, in terms of bringing people together on a bipartisan basis. Unfortunately, too many of the votes in the state senate, where there are 35 members, wind up being 34-1, with my opponent being 1. And I'll outline some of those as we cover specific issues of policy. In terms of operating on a bipartisan basis, I was confirmed by the United States Senate 111 in a Republican-controlled Senate, and then worked with a Republican Congress to improve Social Security.
Gentlemen, next question. This is a hypothetical. You disagree with legislation that the governor promised to enact during the gubernatorial campaign. Now the governor has had that legislation introduced in the Arkansas Senate, where you are a presiding officer, but not an elected member of the Senate. As such, do you have a right to try to use your presiding position to try to influence the outcome of that legislation? Mr. Holt.
Well, first, I mean, it's a hypothetical on top of a hypothetical. So let me answer the question.
The question is, Mr. Holt.
Sorry. Let me go first.
It depends on, I guess, actually what it is. If I actually fought hard and I believe with all of my heart that something was wrong, I believe that you stand on conviction and you're influenced by publicly saying, you know, I'm opposed to this and here's why. However, when it gets to the Senate floor, the Senate committee, my job is actually to deliberate fairly and effectively and to make sure that everybody has their voice heard. And the Senate Lieutenant Governor see it over and over again. And that would be my job, and that's exactly what I would do. The process is too important. But when, as far as letting my position as to influence the Lieutenant Governor, I believe it's very important we set a tone. And like I said before, if it's something strong against my convictions, then I'd have to let my voice be heard, just like as I did in the state Senate, as a state senator when I disagree with the highway bond issue.
Mr. Holt.
But Don, I think that I don't perceive a set of circumstances like you described, but let's just assume in that case, I think the most important role of the Lieutenant Governor in presiding over the Senate is to provide basic fairness and not to try to use the position to manipulate or divert the governor's agenda, but to be as straightforward as you can be and put, if it's an assignment of a bill to the committee, put that in the appropriate committee. If it is managing and overseeing the debate, to make sure that people are equally well recognized. I think you just need basic fairness there. Obviously, I think, depending upon the issue, that's not your only role. Of course, you can go to the governor and say directly, here are the concerns that I have with your piece of legislation, or here's some ways I think we can improve it. But that's not to be done from the chair.
Mr. Holt, 30-second rebuttal.
No need.
My apologies to both of you. I'm told I alternated you incorrectly, so I apologize as you're supposed to be. Mr. Holt, your question. Don't make a mistake. Like it's a surprise. All right. We have no rebuttals on this one, so let's proceed to question 3. And because I asked you first, Mr. Halter, why don't you go back and do it the correct way? Hopefully you won't hold it against me. This is question number 3. The questioner writes, did you support the recent state increase in the minimum wage? Please explain your reasons for your position on this topic, sir.
Yes, I did support the minimum wage increase. In fact, one of the first things I did upon deciding to run for office was to go out and gather signatures to put the minimum wage increase on the ballot. And as a result of the efforts literally of hundreds of Arkansans in putting pressure on to have that minimum wage increase on the ballot, the state legislature and the governor came together and negotiated an increase in the minimum wage from $5.50 to $6.25. I was for that because the minimum wage had not been increased since 1997, and inflation had eroded the value of that minimum wage. I strongly believe that we don't need to return to a pre-1938 world where there is no minimum wage. The fact is that the income level that the minimum wage provides is not adequate, but certainly increasing the minimum wage provides some additional benefit to the tens of thousands of Arkansas families that receive that increase. I would point out that my opponent was the only member of the state senate who voted against that minimum wage increase, and subsequently said that, and I think I've got the quote right, that he was an analyst of the Soviet Union at the National Security Agency, and so he recognized socialism when he saw it, and that the minimum wage in pre-kindergarten were socialism.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Holt, 2 minutes.
Not exactly right. You will advance. Yes, I did vote against the minimum wage increase, and I would do so again. I want you all to think of it just for a minute. I was running a statewide campaign, and I am in the Senate, and I know that this is a populist issue, and I know probably most people are going to agree with it. And a political move, someone that doesn't stand up for school will say, you know what, I'm going to vote for it because I've got this election coming up. I can't lie to you. I can't deceive you. I had Democrats and Republicans walking around the floor saying, this is bad for the people of Arkansas. It's horrible. And he said, but we don't have any choice. You know why they said they didn't have any choice? Because there were people that were going to put it on the ballot that were going to index it to the rate of inflation. Now, I guess the questions I have is, Mr. Halter really cared about the minimum wage. Let's make it $10 an hour. Let's make it $15 an hour. Most people at $10 an hour, that's almost $1,600 a month. Can any of y'all make it on $1,600 a month before taxes? That's not even counting taxes coming out. You know, I think it's this very mindset that's why we're actually in the bottom of almost every category. I call us the 49ers. We need to be working on jobs that pay real wages. Jobs that you can, I mean, if you want to talk about minimum wage, maybe that's what we should do. Is give make minimum wage halter or maximum wage halter. Because we have to get jobs in this state that bring people above the poverty. $6.25 an hour, that's a joke. It's a red herring. And most people even don't even make that now. They make it way above that. People are leaving the state because the jobs continue to leave. The Whirlpool, the Waterloo, the Dremel, the Leicesters, the Timex. They're leaving our state. We need to lower the tax burden to bring high-paying jobs in the state.
30-second remote, Mr. Holt.
Well, where to begin? First, let me just say that we can talk about this, if you wish, about $10 minimum, $15 minimum. I'm prepared to debate that. But the fact is, I'd love to know who some of those members of the Senate were that were telling you why they were being forced to do this. Certainly nobody else said that. We had a Republican governor who signed that piece of legislation. Your running mate, Asa Hutchinson, said that he's for that legislation. If you want to say the principle, that's fine. I'm just saying the principles are wrong.
30 seconds, sir.
I'm ready to debate any time. Maybe we have to make it real soon because I love to debate this one. This one, take with me. You raise the minimum wage, $5.25, $5.15, $6.25 an hour. If you're a small business owner, what's the first thing you have to do? You know there are 8 different areas where you have to increase. It doesn't just increase the minimum wage. It causes inflation that hurts the elderly that are on a fixed income. They don't have the same buying power that they did before when the minimum wage at $5.15. You yourself don't have the same buying power.
Gentlemen, next question. This, I believe, goes to Mr. Holt first. The question is, should illegal immigrants who are earning a living by working in the United States be allowed to stay in the United States?
You did say illegal, correct?
Illegal immigrants, yes.
No, sir. That should not. This is another principle standing. Our way of law, and I want to maybe write a book after this, Compassion Kills. Either we are a nation of laws or we are not. It all goes back to the basic principle of this is mine, it's not yours. The people of this state, the people that started getting me working on this illegal immigration issue were the legal residents, the legal citizens of this state. They said, Jim, you've got to do something. It's hard for us to do a job because people may think that we're illegal. It's not fair to the people that wait in line for 5 years sometimes to get here. Actually, there are people that come here legally and they sign a paper that they cannot receive any benefits for 5 years. So when we ask, should they be allowed to work, we have to ask ourselves the question, what about the other employers of the employees of the state that are wanting to have high-paying jobs, but yet they can't seem to make the high-paying job. They can't get a job with a high-paying job because illegal immigration is driving down the labor wages. It happens. There are businesses that's been around for 30 years that said, Jim, I can't compete. It's killing our economy. Jorge Borjas, Cuban immigrant, legal immigrant, Harvard professor, said it's costing this nation about $250 billion a year. And I guess the question also, not only does it hurt the people that are here legally, but it also hurts our citizens. Because we can be called upon to give our lives for our freedoms for this country in a time of war. A person that's here illegally doesn't. Number two, we also create a slave labor force because they can't sue. They can't have workers' comp insurance. That's a problem. If they don't work on the weekend, you know, they say, hey, I'll call INS. It's not fair to anyone involved.
Mr. Halter.
You know, we do need to address the problem of illegal immigration because that's what no question about it. The fact is that our borders have become far too porous. We all know that it is a federal responsibility to guard and safeguard our borders. The federal government has largely failed in that responsibility. Like Jim, I don't look kindly upon law violations. I do think we have to be a nation of law. But we also got ourselves into this predicament over a period of many years. And it's going to take a tough and pragmatic and fair approach to work our way out of it. In the intervening time, I think we have to behave ourselves as our religious faith, and mine would be a Christian faith, would dictate. And we don't do things that put us into conflict with basic Christian principles. I would say that with respect to illegal immigration, we also need to crack down on employers that are systematically abusing the illegal immigrant status of these workers. We need to put tougher sanctions in. And again, unfortunately, in the last 5 years, the federal government's sanctioning activity has actually gone down. At the same time that most people recognize that this program has gone, this problem has gone up. I also think that we need to do this and talk about this and address this issue in a bipartisan way, and not by inflammatory rhetoric, not by race baiting, and not by candidly demagoguery. And unfortunately, those three adjectives were used by our Republican governor about my opponent in his approach to this issue.
Mr. Holt, 30-second rebuttal.
Oh, boy, that's not long enough. Yes, my Republican governor did say that. I think later they would probably say, you know, he was right on that because we were trying to give scholarships and I was trying to deny benefits to the person that's here illegally because it's not fair to those. This is far different than what I've heard in other forums, and I think it was not too long ago that my opponent talked about he didn't even know that immigration was a problem. So I'm kind of standing here, I guess, a little befuddled. I would agree that Christian principles need to apply.
The reporters who covered our race are looking befuddled right now with that statement by you. You know, I've never said that this is not a problem. In fact, it's a significant problem. But if you're going to create praising him, you know, I'm going to have to guard against that. The fact is, this is a serious and significant problem, and it requires serious people to address it.
Gentlemen, on to the next question. Mr. Halter, this is first for you. The question writes, if marriage is good because it's better for children to be raised by two parents rather than one, why isn't marriage good for the children of a couple who are in a gay or lesbian relationship? This is to you, sir.
Look, my beliefs are, and they're based on my religion, that children are best raised in a traditional family union with a man and a woman. My take on that is something that has been arrived at after serious consideration and recognizing that there are some difficulties with that from the perspectives of gays and homosexuals because they take the wrong message away from that. My strong preference is, and I've indicated this repeatedly, that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that we have a situation where children are best raised in a traditional family.
Mr. Holt.
Well, in reference to the quote earlier, that your mentor of the city of Atlanta is a dinner or something like that. So we'll look up and get it before you go. But on the marriage between a man and a woman, I think most people know where we stood on that time. Marriage should be between a man and a woman. And a child, I mentioned earlier about what we need to do to take care of the adoptive and foster care problem in the state. And that plan will be released in further detail a little later, something that I've been referring to for a while. The question was, though, why is it not good? And, you know, some questions maybe the state should be answered. But I guess, you know, I'm up here to share it in part because I'm looking at the next generation of leaders. And I love you too much to just sit here and blow a noise. I've got to tell you what I believe is passion on this. If you look at many of these studies, they talk over and over about, and if you look at any legislation that we passed, we sometimes pass legislation to protect the individuals. As a matter of fact, my goodness, we go so far to take your kids to school nowadays. The body mass index, I've never understood that one, but we go so far to do that because we want to protect people from themselves. That lifestyle is a damaging lifestyle. There are many books and documentations about how it actually cuts short the life of an individual. And I don't think that is actually what we need for our children and for our society. And I think nature has it figured out. and they know it knows what works. Now we're trying to override nature. So that's some of the reasons why I believe, and my time is almost up.
Mr. Halter, rebuttal.
Save the time.
Sir, Mr. Holt, anything about topics?
Well, I would like to know, because, and I want to make sure I heard this correctly, Bill is definitely for marriage between a man and a woman himself personally. That's not because the people of Arkansas voted that way 75%. And that marriage or adoption he would actively pursue, trying to keep the adoption from happening. Since he has 30 seconds left, I would be more than happy to yield that and hear unequivocally yes or no.
First question was, do I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman?
Do you personally, and you would advocate that in law?
Yes.
And gay adoption? You're not going to
go back to my previous answer. It seems Jamie have a hard time accepting yes from me.
We've never got one before.
Gentlemen, let's continue on the next question, if you would. And I believe we're starting off with Mr. Holt on this one. The question asked, what will you do to improve Arkansas's public schools, sir?
Good question. Too little time, too much information. The first thing we have to do is we get ownership back to the local communities. I thought the courts all run over and over again. And you have to think principally and philosophically. What? And I want you all to think with me. If you're in a little community, the one survey that says over and over and over and over again, the one constant always remains is parental involvement. And people have a tendency to be like the path of least, like water, take the path of least resistance. And the more that government controls education, and the more we have longer bus rides through consolidation and things of that nature, the less time the children actually have to study. And I can't explain it. And you all know this through cognitive development of a child, that a child has to have love. He has to have love. And that has worked out best not from a classroom. Not saying that we shouldn't have love, don't get me wrong, but not from a classroom for the people, but from more strong parental involvement. So the communities have to have buy-in. The communities have to have buy-in, and that means they feel like they have to have ownership of that local school district. If we continue to take more and more power and authority away from the local school boards and the parents and the teachers, then we stop doing that. We have a huge problem right now with paperwork. Teachers say 87% of the reason they leave is because of job dissatisfaction and because of the overabundance of paperwork. It's not because of necessarily the money. So what we have to do then is we have to actually reduce their paperwork and trust the teachers once again to let them teach. Government is too big already. If we continue to make this monster so big, it's going to control every little school district in the area. The government that governs least governs best, and local controls best.
Mr. Halter.
Again, a very long answer, only 2 minutes to take this on. We can come back to another question. I put forward a comprehensive program of improving Arkansas education from pre-kindergarten all the way through graduate school. I believe that we should be striving for excellence in education and not merely adequacy, which has been the legislative focus for so long. I believe that when pre-kindergarten works as well as it does, and we know that $1 spent in a good pre-kindergarten program pays off $5, $7. Some studies show $9 for one, that we ought to be loading up on pre-kindergarten in the state of Arkansas. That, in fact, we should take the very strong and good program we have now and make it available to all of Arkansas 3 and 4-year-olds on a voluntary basis. We have the lowest college graduation rate of our working population in any state in the country. We have to address that. We need to address that with additional financial assistance, scholarships, and loans for students that have the capability to succeed in college and to let them do so. We need to help them get there. We need to make sure that as sports crazy as we are in this state, when And we believe when we see we have an athletic team that's in the top 20 in the country, everybody in Arkansas rallies around that. But it's far more important when we put our education team in the top 20 nationally, and we can do that. Now, unfortunately, my opponent has stood in the way of a lot of these reforms. He has indicated that he believes that pre-kindergarten is Soviet-style socialism. He was one of 2 senators who voted against the pre-kindergarten program and now receives a 10 out of 10 ranking nationally. In addition to that, he has voted at least twice for an increase in the minimum salary for teachers in the state of Arkansas. He is the only member of the Arkansas Senate that voted against the facilities improvement bill. And my time is up, and we'll come back.
Mr. Holt, 30-second rebuttal.
KIPP programs are extremely good programs. Students 4 years would actually move from 34th percentile to the 92nd percentile in math and science. That is a good program. However, I have to actually, I keep hearing excellence in these programs, and I agree in excellence in education, but we're not talking about excellence in wages. I don't understand the logic here. The $40 million I voted against to expand pre-K. We have 10 out of 10 pre-K scores. We get our scores in the state, and they've been like that for a long time. The scores continue.
Well, Jim, you're the only one to vote against those programs, and I think that's a clear difference between us. But I get to hear your explanation for why that's Soviet-style socialism. Perhaps we'll come back to that. I think it's insulting to teachers to basically equate them with mind indoctrinators from the Soviet Union. Perhaps that's why, with my education program and your sorry record on education, that the AEA has endorsed it. I think that this is a real fundamental difference between us. I look forward to debating this. As far as the way we'll come back.
We can continue with an education question, gentlemen, if you would like here. We'll start off with Mr. Halter. This question writes, as Lieutenant Governor for the state of Arkansas, what would be your potential program or plan, or which one of those would you support, for either attracting or providing quality educators to our economically distressed school districts as well as isolated districts, particularly those in the Delta and North Central regions of the state, sir?
Thank you, Don. In fact, I have put forward a plan to address that very issue. We are having difficulty getting teachers into some of our poorer school districts, our more isolated school districts. And I think that we ought to provide financial assistance to those teaching students who are willing to do that. For example, if a teacher agrees to go to one of those rural or poorer districts and teach in an area where we're having a hard time getting math or science or a foreign language teacher, we should steadily forgive their education loans or provide them tuition assistance if they're willing to enter into those programs. I'm going to use a little bit of time here to just answer this wage question. Education is tied inextricably to economic development and higher wages. Every study that you see will show that the higher and the better the education level of the worker, the more likely they are to have high wages and the less likely they are to be unemployed. Jim, it is a distortion to say that I'm not talking about maximum wages. I'm talking about a comprehensive program of improving Arkansas' economy. That's exactly what it's about. And you can try to manipulate this and say that my minimum wage team is in conflict with maximum wages, but I've never seen such a logical fallacy.
Sir, 2 minutes. And there we go again. Programs. If I ask you which had the higher tax burden in the nation, would you say it was Arkansas or Massachusetts? Is it California or Arkansas or New York or Connecticut? It's Arkansas. We have the 4th highest tax burden in the nation. According to the Census Bureau, only 3 other states have a higher tax burden than we do. Vermont, Hawaii, and Wyoming. Now, we want to know why jobs continue to leave the state. Because we're taxing ourselves and pricing ourselves out of business. And I've heard a lot of good programs. The programs sound great. The problem is there's no payment. Every time we promise you a program, we're taking money out of your pocket to pay for it with a huge handling fee, sometimes upwards of 85%. And very little of the money actually goes to where it's needed. I know because I've been in the legislature. My opponent hasn't been here. So the reason I know this Because you can just think with me, it's logic, it's common sense. We have a chicken or the egg problem here, which comes first. Why do the teachers leave? I submit to you it's because of that area is distressed. We need economic development. How do we get that? How do you bring jobs into the state? Let's face it, the reason jobs come here is the bottom line. They can say it's education, but we just talked about jobs for a local land. They're moving one thing to the next, and they're making $60,000 to $80,000 a year. Why is it? Is it because of education? We have lots of educated students here that are great at math and all kinds of things. They go to other parts of the state to make a decent living. Why? Because the jobs are in other parts of the state. How do you get jobs here? It's not by giving more programs and taxing ourselves into prosperity. Every time we raise your taxes, it costs.
Well, Jim, you just cited a statistic that I have been unable to find, saying that Arkansas has the fourth highest tax burden. So I went to the Tax Foundation, a quite conservative organization. Here's what they say. They say that Arkansas has the 40th out of 50 states tax burden. The states you cite as having lower tax burden than we do actually have higher taxes. I'll show you this later. But perhaps you could provide me the site later for the statistics that you're providing. My time is expired on this, but I'm sure we're going to come back.
I can provide it now. It's the Census Bureau. Go to the Census Bureau and look at this tax burden. It's right there, black and white, easy to read. The Tax Foundation is a good group. They said we had the 9th worst business climate. Was the last figures that we've heard from others. On February 18th, I saw a piece of paper that was given to me when I was in Monticello at Economic Development Conference in Arkansas as a state senator, and it actually showed us the 7th worst business climate in the nation. So, I don't know where you're getting your numbers, but the Census Bureau is right here. You often will look at it.
Mr. Holt, second this. Other hypotheticals. The lieutenant governorship, a position for which policy leadership should be exercised. The governor has to leave the state for 2 days. You are in charge. There is a vacancy on the Highway Commission that has not been filled. An important political supporter asks you to appoint him to the vacancy. What do you do, Mr. Holt?
Good question. I think this is one of the things that's wrong with politics. You have a good political person to support you for years. The question I would ask first is the person able to do the job. Is he qualified? And I think that's what's fair. And also, if the governor, regardless if it's Democrat or Republican, whichever governor is in the state, what I would do is call and say, is there a preference that you have? Is there something here that I would try to assist in that situation? I think people are kind of tired of the old, I'll scratch you back, you scratch mine type of politics. I know I am. So we have to get people that are qualified to do that job. And to do that, that's going to be good representation for you. That's going to be a good reflection on you because we're doing what's best for you people. And not because a friend has actually helped in the past. And there's been many times in the state Senate and in the state House where a person would come up to me, and I've seen this happen over and over again, where we had another legislator there, and anyway, the legislative guy put his arm around me and said, hey, Senator Holt, we really appreciate you supporting this bill, and Senator so-and-so is going to run for us, and we'll turn right around, and they said, Senator so-and-so, we thank you for running that, and we leave, and the senator looks at me and says, don't tell me that you got to run that bill. You're going to support that bill, I've got to run it. And yet, at the same time, I had to sit down with my constituents and say, I can't run that bill, and here's why. And you know what I found? Some people say, well, did you lose a vote? No, I've actually found it actually has helped because they come back later and say, Jeff shot straight with me. He couldn't support it, and here's why. And I've actually gained their support because, as Sam Adams said, one of the most important character qualities is integrity. It's where your thoughts and your words and your actions line up.
With respect to your hypothetical, Don, no, I don't think the lieutenant governor should do that. In fact, I'd go further than that. In the absence of the governor, it's going to be a short-term absence. Your basic responsibility is to mind the store and not to execute new policies that are in conflict with the existing governor. And I say that whether that governor turns out to be a Republican or a Democrat. The fact is that I think you need the temperament in that office to understand what your role is, and the fact that in the event of a temporary absence, you're there to mind the store, keep the train running on time, and not go out and initiate new policy. At the same time, I think really what this question is getting to is what kind of working relationship should the governor and the lieutenant governor have, no matter what party they are. Now, I would say that what we need to do as Arkansans and people who are elected to these positions is to make sure that we're all pulling together as much as we can. That if we have differences, let's make them honest differences and put those out there. But work together as much as we can. It was a difficult situation to be the leader of an executive agency in the federal government, in a Democratic administration with a Republican-controlled Congress. That created some frictions. That created some differences in direction. But we worked through it. And what we discovered at the end was the policies and the programs that we had were more important for the American people and citizens in providing the services than the differences that we had on particular policies.
Mr. Holt, 30-second rebuttal.
No, I agree with what he said about, we should leave one-party politics. It's kind of the same answer. Something.
No need to continue on to the next question. Gentlemen, there's been a lot of talk about reforming ethics and outlawing legislators getting a cup of coffee from a lobbyist. And at this point, I'd like you both to talk a little bit more on your thoughts about ethics reform, if you possibly do that. And Mr. Halter, we start with you.
Well, thanks, Don. One of the first policy positions that I put forward in running for office was an ethics reform. I believe that we should not have lobbyists or others buying so much as a cup of coffee for legislators or elected officials. I also believe that they shouldn't be buying any meals, any travel. And my view of that is, it's not that I think that many elected officials are going to have or be subject to any undue influence as a result of getting a cup of coffee, but it's the appearance that you worry about. And then, of course, there's the basic trust in government that we have to maintain with folks. But look, I think that this may be an area that Jim and I agree on. And I think this is an opportunity where we can push ahead and try to get something done together.
Mr. Holt.
Thank you. We've been fighting this for several years in the legislature, and it is kind of just really hard to get something like this passed. The people of the press, members of the press, they know how tough it is. But we had a bill that did a few things. We tried to get on the call for the special session. One is no gift from a lobbyist, registered paid lobbyist, which is what Bill mentioned earlier about no cup of coffee. No revolving door policy. That means the legislator can just become a legislator and then turn right around and become a lobbyist. And that's happened before. Actually, right before I went in 99, we had one person that was a lobbyist at the same time while he was trying to pass a very important piece of legislation at the Capitol. And there was definitely a conflict of interest. That sense has been, that problem has been resolved. Number three, no felon to be a lobbyist. A person that is a felon, we don't let vote most of the time, so it doesn't seem that there's any reason why we should have and this is what my bill did. There is no reason why a felon will do if we get it passed. I understand it was on the calls last time. No felon to be a lobbyist, and if he's going to affect public policy, it just seems like to me that he should, he shouldn't be paid. He's not going to bring away the vote. No contingency fee. This has happened over and over again in the Senate, to where a person will come and will say, and we know it's happened in the past, and they'll say, if you get this bill passed, we'll pay you so many thousands of dollars bonus if you'll get this passed. Another part of the piece of legislation that I put forward would make sure that every lobbyist, every paid registered lobbyist would have full disclosure of their pay. I think that's extremely important. And then the last part of it was no campaign contributions from a person that is a registered lobbyist working at the Capitol, because there's definitely a conflict of interest. when, as a politician or a public servant, you know that if you go against that person, you may not get money from your next campaign.
Most of the proposals that Jim just talked about, I've already been out in public support of. Coincidentally, Jim, even before that, I knew that you had put those proposals out there, and I commend you for them, and I think we can work together to get them enacted.
Mr. Holt.
Thank you, sir.
Other question, gentlemen. The writer asks, what is your position on whether the state typically courts outside investment through taxes and other incentives? And do you think these tax revenue losses, which are often considerable, are truly recovered through the subsequent increase in employment and growth? We can start with Mr. Holt.
Well, our tax code, we've already been over this before, and it's going to be kind of like saying wrong, second verse. We have to do something, to alleviate the tax burden on those businesses. If we continue to raise taxes, they're going to continue to leave. And if they continue to leave, we don't have high-paying jobs for our citizens. And that's got to change. That has to change in the 4th district. It has to change in the 1st. It has to change in every district of the state. It's not just people who think it's in the 3rd. It never happens in the 3rd district because we lost Wizard Whirlpool up before Smith. So, I found some interesting statistics today, though, that might interest you. We were talking about income tax and then property tax, and $350 million actually the corporate tax. So right now in the state of Arkansas, we have $468 million in the bank in the state of Arkansas as a surplus. Next fiscal year ends June 30th, 2007, and it's projected that we're going to have approximately $721 million surplus. We have, and that's because of you generating the economy. Now, to allow that to continue to happen, no matter, even if the economy continues to grow just like it is now, we're going to have a $720 million surplus every year. So why not make sure that we have a level playing field? Let's make sure that we are up with other states in the nation as far as luring businesses to take high-wage jobs here. And that's something that we have to do.
Mr. Holt.
Well, I think you have to be smart about these tax incentives. The fact is, a lot of times what happens is states compete, a factory or a plant comes in, the use tax incentive, and then when that tax incentive expires, the owner of that plant decides to move to another state in search of another tax incentive. So I think you have to be careful here. I do think that we need to be competitive with respect to other states. But one of the things that is clearly happening in the 21st century economy that is much different than the 19th or 20th century economy is that a lot of job location is dependent upon the intellectual capital of the people that are working there. That is to say, how well educated, how well trained they are. And that's something that we need to do here, a better job of in the state of Arkansas, because those people that decide to get very well educated, very well trained, and are in the state of Arkansas are not likely to move if the jobs are here for them. So we can bring people in that way. I'd also say, in terms of just basic economic development, we have come up short as a state in getting our fair share of federal research and development funds. The fact is that Arkansas gets around numbers around $125 million a year. It bounces around a bit in federal R&D. But if we were at the national average per capita of federal R&D, that would be $400 million more dollars a year coming into the state. $4 billion over a decade. And that's going to take some time to do that. But that research and development and the innovation that can come off of that can spur new industries. That's what's happening in the most vibrant economic areas in the country, in Silicon Valley, around Austin, Route 128 around Boston, in Washington, D.C., outside the technology quarter. Those are the jobs of the future that pay very high salaries. There are stock options for the employees so they can accumulate wealth in these companies. One quick example, Google has only been around for less than a decade. 5,000 employees, 1,000 of those 5,000 employees are millionaires as a result of their stock options. We can do that here.
Mr. Holt, 30 seconds.
I agree with Mr. Holt, and we have to be careful not to give away the storehouse. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is overall politically, not political, but a landscape as far as the tax environment that's conducive for business and high-paying jobs. And once again, we go back to which comes first, the chicken and the egg. I think we have to have high-paying jobs here, which will more people, which actually increases the educational output. If a child doesn't feel like he doesn't know where his next meal is going to get, or his mom and dad don't know where their next dollar is going to come from, and they're going from paycheck to paycheck, it puts too much stress on the home.
Mr. Halter.
Let me say this, we've only got 30 seconds, but while we're on the subject of taxes, I want to make it clear that I am for eliminating, phasing out the sales tax on groceries in Arkansas. We're one of the few states that currently has that tax, and we need to phase that out. Let me also say that in terms of economic development, it's not just the tax incentive, but also the overall economic environment, the power of the research university, and the level and the training and quality of the workforce that's going to determine when industries come back.
Gentlemen, I believe informed that was our last question this evening, and now we will proceed to the closing statements. Again, on the coin toss, Mr. Holt will go first.
Well, you know what? As I stand here before you and we're getting ready to leave, I would like to just share with you some ideas that maybe, I want to clear up a lot of misconceptions that are out there. For instance, which political party, which president, which political party ended slavery and slave proclamation? The Republicans. Which president, which governor in the state of Arkansas in the 50s and Little Rock 9, which governor, and most people don't even realize this, who was it that said we're not going to let those people in here? It was the Democrat and the Republican Governor Eisenhower that came in and said, yes, we will desegregate. Which party took Social Security from an independent trust fund and put it under the general fund so that Congress could spend it? It was Lyndon Johnson, and democratically controlled the House and Senate. Which political party eliminated the income tax deduction for Social Security at 5 years old? It was the Democrat Party. Which political party started taxing Social Security annuities? It was the Democrat Party. Now, if that doesn't kind of surprise you, which it seems to surprise a lot of people, and I think Mr. Halter would agree with me, he wouldn't probably been for doing those things, neither would I. But there's been some, quote, stereotypes that need to be cleared up. One last thing before end. If we continue to allow government to take God from our society, who's left to give us our rights? You know? It's the government. And if the government's big enough to give you rights, they're big enough to take them away. My job as an elected official is to protect your freedom. Thomas Jefferson says this. He said, can the liberties of a Democrat, said, can the liberties of a nation be secure when we remove their only firm basis? What is it? The conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are given from God. Thank you.
Mr. Halter, you have the final word.
Thank you, Don. Thanks to everyone here. Jim, thank you for the spirited debate. When I was growing up, our state was known as the land of opportunity. With great parents and a good education and hard work, I've had some terrific opportunities in both the public and the private sector. But we need to broaden and deepen the opportunities that are available for all our candidates. We'll do this by striving for excellence in education, not just adequacy. We'll do it by building and bringing the higher paying jobs of the 21st century to Arkansas. We'll do it by providing enhanced retirement security and health care coverage for our state's seniors. Now, this is going to require pragmatic, common sense solutions. Tonight's debate has shown, I believe, a clear choice for voters. With all due respect, my opponent has a record of too often being the odd man out. On many important issues, he not only disagrees with me, he disagrees with Asa Hutchinson and with Mike Huckabee. From comparing the minimum wage to socialism and advocating the privatization of Social Security to exploiting hot-button emotional issues, unfortunately, my opponent has a record of putting personal ideology ahead of the best interest of the state. I think we need leadership that will reach out across party lines and has demonstrated an ability to reach out across party lines. I hope to be a lieutenant governor who will do that. I pledge to you I won't be a leader who practices politics of fear. We must put progress for all our Kansans ahead of political ideology. With your help, hard work, and God's grace, I think we can do it. So that 20 years from now, you won't have a Republican or a Democratic candidate standing before you talking about when they were born, Arkansas was 49th in per capita, and today it's 49th per capita. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, a round of applause.